Welcome to the What's Your Truth podcast, the show that not only showcases the best of independent artists, but also explores what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. Today on the show, we have Gina DeLuca. Ever playful and mysterious behind blazing blonde curls and intense blue eyes lies the true heart of an artist. Born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, Gina's music roots go way back to her days as a toddler. Then at age 22, she decided this crazy little thing called the music biz was for her after sitting in with a local band and immediately being bitten by the bug. That same year, she picked up the guitar, wrote an astonishing 40 songs in a 6-month period, and landed a solo gig that would keep her busy every Friday night for the next 8 years. The rest, as they say, is history. With a voice as gloriously gritty and soulful as they come, reminiscent of the likes of Susan Tedeschi and Bonnie Raitt, Gina's brand of sultry blues is nothing short of the most delectable candy to the ear and the most satisfying nourishment to the soul. If you haven't heard her yet, you really do need to find out. Commensurately, Gina has been recognized by Gresh Guitars as a spotlight artist. Her song, Nothing in Your House, was covered by Sapphire, the Uppity Blues Woman, and she's also been inducted into the Maryland Entertainment Hall of Fame. Now, as grandiose as Gina is, even just on the basis of what I've mentioned so far, there's a whole other side to Gina, her exquisite fluid art stylings. Ever the scientist as much as the artist, and with the YouTube following 160K strong, a series of happy accidents has led her to growing her channel into the vehicle with which she pushes her creative passions to new and as of yet unexplored heights and uncharted territories in the world of acrylic art. She's one of the hardest working women in the arts today, and it's an honor to have her on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Gina DeLuca.
Hello.
Woo!
That was quite the intro.
You know, I try.
Wow.
I try to do you justice. So let's roll into
I did
it.
all that.
No, I know, right? It's like, it's a funny thing to look back and hear someone recite back all the things you did, and then it's like, yeah, you really did do all that, and I didn't even cover everything.
I have worn many hats or bandanas, whichever the case may be. Yeah, I've had some interesting jobs over the years, but music and art are my favorites. So, yay! I get to do what I love.
Oh, yes, you do. Well, awesome. So let's roll into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Beautiful. So my first question for you is, how did you decide that you wanted to become a musician?
Oh, geez. Well, probably I always wanted to be a musician. When I was a wee thing, I had a Barbie record player, and I would listen to my Beatles albums with my big giant 1970s cans, which are back in style now. So, but the thing where it was like 3 heads. It was like the size of my head, and I would have the vacuum cleaner. I'd pull the vacuum cleaner out and sing into the handle of the vacuum cleaner like it was a microphone. Um, so and there is a picture of me in kindergarten, like at some Christmas thing. It was 2 other little girls trying to get on that microphone, and I was like, "No girls." But I was hogging the stage, um, and then something changed, and I started, having a little bit of anxiety about singing in front of people, and gosh, then it didn't actually happen until I was in my 20s. Like I had some opportunities in high school, and I turned them down because I was afraid to do it. And then one day, someone shoved me on a stage, and that was kind of the end of that. I had to get over it. I had so much fun, and I was so nervous every time I would get up for a very long time. But I realized that my love of performing was greater than my fear of failing. And so I kind of just put that in my mind every time I got on stage. And then I started learning how to play guitar. And then I just started, I had gigs every week. As soon as I learned 40 songs, I had a weekly gig. And that was kind of the beginning. So it all started with a friend of mine literally shoving me 2 hands with force onto a stage. That's what it took. She heard me sing in the car. She's like, "You can sing this." So it's very important to have at least one person who believes in you more than you do.
That's so awesome
Um,
and so
yeah.
true. So true. There's so many great artists out there that even after they've made it are like, it's like you can tell they still have trepidation about themselves, and yeah, you need those people to really believe in you. It's so huge.
Imposter syndrome is a very real thing. Um, and you can have that in any job. It doesn't have to be, something in entertainment or the arts. Anybody stepping into a new position probably has that feeling like, oh, geez, I don't belong here. There's surely somebody else who's more qualified for this. But that other person felt the same way at some point. You know, it's new to you, everybody at some point. So, yeah, definitely having people in your corner is a really important thing. And musically, that was huge for me because once one band heard me sing, then they were like, "Oh, come over and sit in with us." And then the next band was like, "Hey, come sit with us." And there's a place called Fells Point in Baltimore, which is kind of like, the Bourbon Street of Baltimore, just bars with music all over the place. And when I was first starting out, it was like I'd hop in this bar and I'd go sing with this band, and then I'd go to the next bar and sing with that band. And that's kind of how I got my chops. That's also how I got my name out there,
Yeah.
to be able to get gigs. And, um, you know, there was a lot of pavement pounding, to get those gigs. And ironically, now after the pandemic, I took an extended hiatus during the pandemic and turned down lots of gigs during that time. And so now I'm back to square one because all these places are prioritizing the bands who are willing to play during the pandemic. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. They were willing to risk their life for that gig. They deserve it more than I do, for sure. I'm not going to begrudge anyone that. So it kind of is like starting over again because so many of the places shut down, and the places that are still open are under new management. And so it's just like, okay, so we're gonna do this again. But just reinvent myself altogether. Why not?
That's right. That's awesome. And then, hey, at least you know how to do it. You've done it before. You can do it again, right?
It is it I cannot express how imperative it is to be flexible and resilient if you want to be in the arts of any form. Um, Things change, styles change. Um, you know, Once upon a time, I'm in a rockabilly band. you know, 10 years ago, we could have played anywhere. And now it's kind of changed. And a lot of the places want more of that like 90s, early 2000s pop,
Yeah.
top 40 stuff. So times change. So what do you do when that happens? Well, now I'm going to start a funk project where we take pop songs and make them funk. So it's like, well, we get to still have fun with the music, and we get to please the crowd that is the age of, some of our children. So,
Absolutely. Well, and that's what a great lesson too. Like the concept that you do need to please yourself, but it really is about pleasing the crowd. I mean, otherwise you're not going to have work. So I think that's something a
well,
lot of
yeah.
people, especially early on, artists tend to miss. It's all about what they're trying to do, which is true. It should be about what you're trying to do, but there's definitely that balance because without an audience, you kind of don't. What are you going to do? So, who are the biggest influences on your work and why?
Musically,
And
uh,
whatever that means to
eh,
you.
okay, because that's such a wide gamut.
Right.
So many interests. Um, Musically, um, the Beatles were my first love, and then it was Queen and the Stray Cats. Once the Stray Cats hit the U.S., it was opened up a whole new world for me style wise, and you know, um, and like Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and the Stray Cats were out at the same time, and I was watching Sha Na Na. It was all about Greaser life,
Oh yeah.
before I even knew what it was. um, so that was kind of my early years, and I went through my little emo period in high school with the Smiths and the, Depeche Mode and all of that, of course. Uh, and then I discovered um, blues and, kind of really started to fall in love with that and just started going back further and further. And, I play stuff from the 1920s and 30s. Um, and I realized once I started playing guitar, I realized that all of the songs that I wanted to learn that I really loved, what they all had in common was the 1-4-5, which is the basis of blues.
Right.
And everything else is like born out of blues, rock and roll 1-4-5, country 1-4-5. It's all just like slight variations on the voicings of the chords that might give it a little more twang or a little more crunch or um but and I noticed that like all of the songs that I loved had this 1-4-5 thing. And so I was like, I love the blues before I even knew what it was called. And so, I kind of just went down this rabbit hole. Um I am a firm believer in, learn the influences of your influences. So, who influenced the people that influenced you? In one of my songs called Days of Soul, I have a line in there: the wider the roots, the taller the tree, the better the view.
I like that.
So, the deeper you get into your roots, the wider you cast that net, the more you understand the music that you're playing. And um, it's so important to not pigeonhole yourself, I feel. And each one of my CDs is kind of its own entity. My first one was, kind of it's like just post Lilith Fair, so there was a lot of that
Mhm.
singer songwriter kind of vibe. Although I mean, it's full band, so there's some rockers on there. Um, the second one was very much an homage to my influences, and so there's like a Ray Charles inspired tune, there's a Stevie Wonder inspired tune, and then this last one was more rockabilly and kind of rag jazz, kind of, a little further back in history style wise. And the next one's probably going to be funk. Like, you know, like I know they say, find your artistic voice and you stick to that. And I'm just like, yeah, but it changes. Like, that's part of being an artist, right? I mean, Picasso didn't paint his cubism the whole time.
Correct.
He didn't always make women look like flounders.
That is a very fair point. And I mean, variety is the spice of life, right? And there's so much
Yeah.
to enjoy and to appreciate and to immerse yourself in. And I just love that you really have approached it as a journey and you've taken everything in on that journey. That's so huge. Oh,
This
the
is
kitty.
Satchmo.
Oh, hello, Sashmo.
Yeah, so he'll lay down in one second. Come here, lay down before you cause a ruckus. Lay down.
Ah,
There we go. Okay.
cats are cool with me.
That's also Satchmo.
Right?
The other one, his namesake.
That's so awesome. And then what's the weirdest thing that's ever inspired you?
Ooh, the weirdest thing that's ever inspired me. Um, Geez, I've never been asked that question before.
Right on.
Um, the weirdest thing. Um, I mean, I've had songs inspired just by, someone will just say, like at the end of a gig, um, the doorman said, last call for a bar brawl. And I was just like, bing, is that a song? If that no, can I have that? Can I write a song? The song was already written.
Yeah,
As
right.
soon as I heard it, I knew what the story was. I saw it playing out in my head, and I could not pack up and get home fast enough to go write this song, So I've had a couple of songs come to me like that where it's just a phrase and it just my song "Nothing in Your House," the one that Sapphire covered,
Hmm.
that was inspired by the husband of one of the women in Sapphire, um, who I, you know, I bust chops with my friends, and so I busted his chops, and he's like, "I don't care, I got nothing in your house," and I was like, "Is that a song?" He's like, "No," and I'm like, "Can I have it?" He's
Ah,
like, "Sure." And so I wrote it, and immediately, like I heard in my head one of the other women from Sapphire singing it, like this song. And I couldn't write it fast enough, like literally scribbling, trying to get this out so I didn't lose it. And then Gay Degbalola from Sapphire, I gave it to her, and she loved it. And then they put it on their final CD before they retired. And she fought to get it on there because she's like, "This is, it's perfect." And so, you know, stuff like that. Oh, the one time I was watching TV and I misheard something. I thought they said he would sucker punch a blind man, and I
ah,
was like, "Wow, that's cold." And then I was like, "Did he say that?" And I rewound, and I was like, "He didn't say that, but I'm gonna." I wrote it down and wrote a whole song around that.
that's
So,
awesome.
um, yeah, inspiration comes from, it can come from anywhere if you're ready for it. But every now and then something just hits me, and it's just like, wow, this is, it already wrote itself.
Totally. And that's like another good point of just being receptive to inspiration. And I think sometimes artists have a tendency to be a little too much in here and not enough out there, and just being willing to receive things like that. That's so great.
It is so important to not get in your head when you're trying to be creative. One of the things that I always say, I host a songwriting workshop. And one of the things that I say in this workshop every week, we call it, checking off the bingo card. There are things that it's like, I got to say it every week because I got to drill it
Mhm.
in. Write like a child, edit like a scientist. So allow the right brain is your creative side, that's your inner child. Allow that to do what it's going to do, allow it to be creative. And then later, bring in the scientist, bring in your left brain to come in and edit that. Because if your left brain is doing its job while your right brain is trying to do its job, it's going to bully your right brain. You're going to start second guessing. So I find that to be true even with art. If I start second guessing myself, that's when I make mistakes. Um, that mistakes, that's when I get a you know an outcome that I wasn't intending or wanting. Not a mistake, because you always learn from everything. If it's not a mistake if you learn from it.
That's right.
um but I feel it's so important to allow your creative side to just be creative and don't judge it while it's happening. um and that goes with any kind of creativity, whether you're trying to write a novel or do a painting or a song, anything.
Absolutely. And again, man, you are just dropping the nuggets of gold here, man. This is like, we're not even like halfway into this interview, and you're like blowing my mind. This is so great. And again, that's something that I think people really need to hear. And they really like artists, whether they're getting ready to become artists, like new artists, or people that are like a little failed at it and need rekindling. It's like that's so simple and fundamental and huge, is just let the shit roll, and just let it fly, and just don't be afraid, or don't judge yourself on the stuff coming out of your mind. Like, embrace it and just get it down. And then, like you said, you can craft it and style it later. That's so huge.
That is the biggest piece of advice, to someone who is a songwriter, I think, is to just let it happen. um the the more we get in there and start overthinking is your enemy.
Yeah,
Always, whether you're taking your SATs, doing a job interview, whatever, overthinking is your enemy. So it's like when I prepare for something, I I don't believe in over preparing, because I feel like, first of all, you lose a little bit of spark if you are so over prepared that it feels phoned in or scripted, or prepare for it. Get to the point where it's just like, say I'm going to go perform on live TV. I've done that a couple of times. I've done like this Manic Monday thing that's like this local thing that happens at 6:30 in the morning. That's tough, let me tell you. To get up and look like this, and drive an hour and look like this, by 6:30 in the morning. Well, actually your call is like at 5:30. So
Yeah.
you just stay up from the gig before and but I'd learn the song. I would practice it to make sure, yep, I've got it down. And then I'm done. I'm not going to keep doing it until I get to the point where it's like, now I'm in my head about it. It's like, it's in there. Once it's in there, like as a musician, once it's in there and you have that muscle memory, get out of your own way. Your right brain knows what to do. Your left brain is going to get you in trouble in this place as well. The left brain has its place.
Sure.
But while you're being creative that's not it. Get out of the way. There's one song that Black Horse and the Cherry Tree.
Yep.
And one time I messed up the second verse. And now I mess up that second verse every time, because as I start that song, I go, don't mess up the second verse. And so I start thinking, that's the left brain. Left brain just came in and was like, don't mess it up. And so what happens?
Oh, that's so
yeah, I call that being in the quicksand, where it's just like, you lost before you started because your left brain stepped in, and when your inner child was trying to do its thing.
totally. So how has your art influenced other people?
Wow, when I started putting videos up on YouTube, I never ever expected that to happen. That's for sure. I just started dabbling. I was a watercolor artist before I started doing acrylic pouring. And I saw the acrylic pouring and I was just like, that would make amazing backgrounds, for some of the stuff that I want to do. And then I posted a picture and somebody was like, how did you do that? And I figured it would just be easier to show than to explain it. So I put up a video, and then it got like more views than like anything else that I had ever put up on my YouTube. And so I also found that by videoing my work, I could kind of analyze what I was doing. And again, it's my scientist. That's where my left brain comes in. Like after the painting's done, I let the left side come in. But yeah, so I started, putting up these paintings, and video number 15 was an accident. It was this giant canvas, and it was, as far as I know, the first straight pour. And then video 16, I changed up one of the paints, and then it was like boulder cells, the first boulder cell pour. So 15 and 16 went viral.
Oh wow.
And I've gotten so many messages from people over the years at, just thanking me for giving them an outlet to, to express their creativity. And, but just this week was a full circle moment. So I was having some computer issues, and I was having a minor meltdown over this thing, and I posted something on Facebook, just my computer woes, and I was like, just pray for me, I'm not okay. And then someone commented, I'm a digital marketing, expert. I would love to help you. And it turns out that she put herself through graduate school. She's got 2 masters in digital marketing. And she put herself through school selling acrylic pours that she learned how to do by watching my videos.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she was like, I'm grateful to be able to give back. And, so knowing that, like, just this thing that seems like a silly thing that I'm doing, just taking videos of my paintings and put them up on the internet, that it's like it's actually helping people. Um, and musically too, I've had people come up over the years and tell me that they wouldn't be doing what they were doing if I hadn't encouraged them to do so. And I remember in my early years getting someone up to sit in with me, because I always wanted to pay that forward. That's how I got started. So I always wanted to, give that to other people too. And she would come up and sit in, and she would be so far away from the mic, and I'd have to keep turning up the mic, and she'd step further back, and I'm like, no, girl, get on that mic. And then one day, 5 or 6 years later, I walk into a benefit for the American Heart Association. She was a nurse. I walk in to a benefit, and I hear this band on stage, and I hear, "What you want, baby, I got it." And I'm like, "Who's that?" It was her. It was her. Like, I have never been more proud in my life. I was just like, look at her doing Aretha. I couldn't get her on the microphone with Joel, and now she's belting out Aretha. So that was such a proud moment for me, because I was where she was at one point. I was too afraid to do it, and somebody kept going, do it, do it, do it. And now she's up there in front of all these doctors and just belting it out. And so those kind of things really just make all of it worthwhile. It's that's the most fulfilling thing for me, is knowing that I can pay it forward. It's not the applause that I get at the end. It's me watching someone else get applause that I kind of like give a little alley-oop. I feel like a rising tide lifts all boats. So I'm not one of the step on someone else to get ahead types. Hey, let's keep pulling each other up.
Definitely. That's awesome. And wow, that I can imagine how fulfilling that would have been. That's wow. So, what risks, if any, have you personally taken for the sake of your crafts?
Oh man, well, becoming a full-time musician is not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that.
Fair point.
What 401ks, health benefits,
What are those?
owning your own house, those kind of things. That
Mhm.
if you are a single person and you are a musician, it is very hard, very, very hard. Um, I'm doing much better in that way since I started doing the art. The art has been far more lucrative. I use that term loosely.
Yeah, right.
I'm not a millionaire. I'm not close to that. But I love where I live, and it's a rental. One day I'll own a place like this. But I have gotten to do what I love, and um I've seen a lot of people in my life with with the good job, with the 30 years at the job and the gold watch and the pension, but every day they go to work and they are just absolutely miserable, and they get miserable on Sunday because tomorrow is Monday, so they can't even enjoy the whole weekend. And I'm just like, man, like, I can't. I mean, I guess if I had to, if I had kids and had to, I would have to give up, you know, trying to make a living as an artist. Um, but yeah, I often joke, but it's only a half a joke, that if you want to be a musician as a career, um, you kind of need to look at it as, like if you were going to become a priest, you're taking a vow of poverty. um you know you might become the pope,
Yeah, right.
but probably
That's a
you
great
know
analogy, actually. I never thought.
so yeah, I mean, it's like you have to do it because you love it. Like it has to be because you love it. If you're doing it to get famous, if you're doing it to get rich, you're probably, odds are, going to be disappointed. If you buy that Mega Millions ticket, you might win, but probably,
Yeah, reality
it's like
check.
you have to be realistic, right? You can have success in music, but that depends on what your definition of success is, right? So if you want to be the next Beyonce, well, oof, good luck. But if you want to make a living as a musician, it is absolutely possible. There are lots of different irons you can throw in the fire to make it happen. You can teach other people how to do it. You can go on Sound Better and do freelance work for people.
Sure.
Do top lines. If you play an instrument, you can play instruments. Um, you could work on trying to get your music synced into TV shows and movies and such. There are a lot of avenues to make money as a musician without becoming a megastar. And I've said my entire career, I want to be anonymously famous. I want to be the next Diane Warren. And then people go, who? And I'm like, exactly.
Ah,
You know all her music.
that's
You
right.
know, she's written a billion number one hits that, you probably played at your wedding. You might have danced to it at your wedding song, but you would never recognize her. That's like, to me, that's the ultimate, like how Sia did it. Sia came in, she wore those wigs and you couldn't see her face.
Uh-huh.
It was like, oh, I never thought of that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, right. Well, even guys like Daft Punk was like that too. They always came out in costume. No one knew what the hell those guys looked like for decades.
Right. Or
So,
Banksy.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's one thing about you that would shock everyone to know?
Wow, that's a question. Hmm. My family used to get Christmas cards from Jimmy Hoffa.
Whoa. Okay, that's shocking.
And if you ever watch a documentary and see Jimmy Hoffa's wife wearing a pearl necklace, I apparently my grandmother bought that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, yeah. Well, I mean, I've had a very weird. If I wrote an autobiography, nobody would believe any of it.
Oh,
Maybe
that's
some of it, but most of people was like, "Oh, come on, that can't."
hey,
Yeah,
sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, man.
it's been a weird, wild ride, you know? Yeah, it's I never thought I would, be like an internet celebrity, like a D-list celebrity, you know. I only have that plaque. I don't have like that super fancy one. But like I never thought that, and for art of all things, like 25 years in the music business, and like then I put a painting up on YouTube, and then all of a sudden my channel that's been there for like 10 years finally hits 1,000 subs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like such a weird thing to me that my career just kind of took this whoop. And actually, I was ready to leave the music business, and I was going to cosmetology school.
Oh, wow.
And I wound up with a cyst in my wrist and tendonitis in my elbow. And I took 6 months off to let those heal. And 2 days before I was supposed to go back, I herniated a disc in my back. And it was just like, that's it. Like, because you could only take 6 months off.
Right.
And I was like, that's it. Like, that's so much for that. And I started painting. I found a watercolor set in the basement. This was like 2016, 17. I found a watercolor set in the basement, and I always told myself that I couldn't paint. Like, I just believed that I couldn't. I tried like 3 times, and I was just like, oh, this is hot garbage, My younger self, not knowing what I know now. Um, and then I did a watercolor painting. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can paint. And then I did another painting, and I put that up on Facebook, and I had 9 commissions within a week.
Oh.
And I was just like, if that is not a prime example of the universe slamming a door in your face and shoving you through a window, like, it's like, no, you're not doing this. You're doing this. Get used to it. And that was, a very interesting left turn. But again, be adaptable, because I couldn't play guitar. I couldn't, I still couldn't play guitar. And I mean, I was like laid up with my back for like 6 months.
You're right.
So, again, be adaptable, be resilient. Oh, this thing isn't working out. Okay, well, I'm creative. I'll figure something else out. Let's see what we can do over here and make that happen. And so then the watercolor, I kind of went nuts with that, and was doing like hyper realistic watercolors. Um, and then I wanted to work bigger. And so I started messing around with acrylics, and then I discovered the acrylic pouring and was like, oh, I want to use backgrounds. But then I was so fascinated with all the cells I was getting that I was like, I can't paint over this.
Yeah, right.
And so then that just kind of became the next 500 paintings.
That's awesome.
That's yeah, a lot of left turns to get to where I am now.
Yeah, right on. And you earlier mentioned if you were going to write an autobiography about yourself, no one would believe it. And that is a perfect segue into my next question, which is, if you were going to write a book about your career up to this point, what would you title it?
Ooh, man, it would probably be something like be fluid, or stay fluid, or be water. That's another little thing that I used to say to myself when I was feeling resistance.
Yeah.
There's this old Chinese proverb, and I'm gonna botch it, but it's something along the lines of, though the bamboo forest is dense, water flows freely through it.
I like that.
And so I would tell myself, be water. So every time it's like you have all these obstacles in the way, be water. Just don't fight it. The universe knows what you're supposed to be doing, and if you pay attention, um, you will see how it's all connected.
Awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what are your plans for world domination?
Well, geez. So I have some plans in the works. Some I can't quite talk about yet. Some I might want to talk to you about after this is over. And yeah, I really want to try to reach as many people as I can to help them find their artistic voice. And whether that is through songwriting or whether that is through painting, um, for me, helping people overcome those obstacles that they put in their own way. It's all mental, helping people to get over those things. That's kind of my air. That that is what makes me feel like everything that I do is worth it. And so, I'm kind of coming up with some ideas of how to help more people. Um, how to get this stuff out there a little more so that um it hits a bigger audience, you know, than just the people that come to watch my videos or who come to my songwriting workshops. Like I feel like we are our own biggest enemies. Like when it comes to um criticizing ourselves, um and um just when we second guess ourselves, when we don't believe in ourselves, then if we tell ourselves that we can't do it, we're right.
Right.
All those times I told myself I couldn't paint, I was right
Hmm.
because I told myself that I couldn't. But when I did it, and I used a reference that last time, or the first time again, um, I used a reference photo, and that made all the difference in the world. And it's like, well, I don't draw like from memory. I don't, um, I use a reference when I'm drawing. So why would I think that I could do a painting without using a
Right.
reference? um, you know, but because all those years I would tell myself that I couldn't do it, I believed it. And so I just didn't even try it. And it's just like, well, if you want to do it, what's the harm in trying it?
Right.
What's, and I find that so many people um are afraid to even try things, to try new things. And they want to try like the fluid art. Like I people all the time are like, I have all of the supplies and I've been watching videos for a year and I'm just not ready. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? You know, like get, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take the step. You can't get better until you start. And you have to give yourself permission to not be perfect. Like nobody sits down the first time and does a masterpiece. So for me, I just want to help people find their creativity because I really think that especially in today's world, having an outlet is absolutely crucial for mental health and well-being.
Absolutely. I love that. And then I have one more question for you before we end off here. And just to revisit the introduction to the show. So again, this is not only the show not only showcases the best of independent artists, but also explores what inspires them, what drives them, and what they consider their fundamental purpose as an artist to be. So Gina, what's your truth?
Mm, wow. Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of ties in again to my last answer is you know I do what makes me happy. And I find that let's take it to the music analogies. I'm just going to flip flop back and forth here.
Yeah.
When you watch a band on stage that is having fun, you have fun. Like, even if you're not that into the music, if they look like they're having a blast, you kind of automatically start having more fun because they now you could have a band that is fantastic. And if they're all up there mean mugging each other,
Mhm.
and like this guy messed up and everybody sneers at him and like that's not fun. That's
Oh,
no. So I do what I think is fun for me and then hope that that inspires someone else to do what would be fun for them and what would be their creative outlet. And so really, um and gosh, I mean, it almost sounds like uh I don't know, like snooty to even say it, but it's like I would rather inspire someone than, you know, than for the applause or the accolades for myself. Like I would rather um someone else be inspired. Uh so I guess that's it. I mean, I guess at the end of the day is to inspire other people because it was people who inspired me that got me to where I am, which is probably the happiest I've been in my life, as far as like um the whole all over what I get to do and how I feel about what I'm doing. Um and yeah, I just want to inspire other people to follow their dreams and let them know that it is possible to do something that you love and pay your bills. Um, you just might have to think out of the box about how to make that happen. It might not come, the same way as if you got a 9 to 5 and sat in a cubicle and then you just collect your paycheck. Like you're going to have to get creative about whatever, how to get gigs, how to sell your product, how to, promote yourself. Um, but if you're a creative person, that's kind of part of being creative, right? It's just like, oh, well, let's see, how can I start selling this product and get people interested? Or, how can I make this painting that I have in my mind? How can I turn that into an actual thing? Um, so yeah, I just want to inspire people to go do it. I mean, that's why my group is called Go Make Some Art. It's like
yeah.
go forth in art. Like,
So awesome. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, what a great way to end off. And for everyone that's watching this as a video podcast versus an audio, look at this face. She's happy. She's doing it right. And this is the result when you do things with your integrity and you help other people. This is exactly what it should look like. So well done. Um, and before we do end off, Gina, well, first of all, thank you so much for being here and taking the time. This has been incredible. Um, and then I want to give you 60 seconds before we end off. Just, if there's anything you want to plug, 60 seconds of everything Gina DeLuca. Fire away.
oh geez. Okay. Well, I have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Gina DeLuca. Um, we're going through a lot of the stuff that we talked about, the imposter syndrome and kind of like all of the mental aspects of it. Um, but also kind of deep diving into how to do some of the more challenging things. Like currently we're doing my splash paintings. Um, I'm part of Musicians Peer Support. You can get that at musicianspeersupport.com or join the Facebook group. And that's how, if you wanted to come in on some of the songwriting workshops, that's how you would find that, is through that group. Um, and Yeah, I mean, I have my art and music for sale on my website, ginadeluca.net. Um, yeah, I think that's mostly my plugs.
Well,
No
fun.
movies coming up or anything.
Well, no problem. I will also have some links in the description for your social media handles and all that. So people can jump on your YouTube, which y'all really need to find out aside from the music. And the music is incredible. The art is commensurately as incredible as the music, I think. I mean, your art's incredible and it very mind blowing stuff. So I
Thank
will get you some.
you.
Yeah. So, guys, this has been the What's Your Truth podcast. Until next episode, I'll see you later.
Yeah, you follow your own rules and you preach them on to me. But you don't think before you act, and you ain't got no business with me. You don't know. But tell me what's your truth? Oh, what's your truth?